Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Loyd. This is the Path to Paradise podcast for the second week of December. And I'm gonna pause for just a little bit because I just did an interview and got off 3 minutes ago. So that means that people couldn't come in who were waiting to come in. So I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes and then we'll get started in just about 1 or 2 minutes. Sorry about the delay.
Hello.
Hey, Harry. All right. We're going to go ahead and start. I'm Alex Loyd. This is no, the other way. This is Harry, and this is the Path to Paradise podcast for the second week of December. Welcome. Again, sorry I was late. I just jumped off another interview. Okay, we're going to do a teaching and then we'll open it up for Q&A and then we'll be done. All right. I was praying this morning, actually. I was thinking about talking about one thing today, and then after this happened, I decided to talk about this today. But there's a passage in the Bible, and it's one of the most famous in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 13, the chapter on love that gives the 16 different factors of love that I believe is the definition. And that tells you something right there, that there's a word that it takes 16 other words or phrases to adequately define it. And I don't know that we have that about any other word except love, because it's a noun, it's a verb, it's an adjective, it's everything. And at the end of that chapter, it says, these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And that passage had bothered me a little bit my whole life until this morning when I was praying, because I thought, okay, yeah, faith and love I get, but you're putting hope as these are the three? I mean, I would think maybe a different one, like truth rather than hope. But this morning, it all made sense to me. And Harry, did you check out the underlying meaning?
Yes, I did.
Could you share that, please? Whatever it is. And I haven't heard this yet. I've been on another call.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of information about it, but the original Greek word there is elpis, which literally means to anticipate or welcome. The way it's generally understood is as an expectation of something sure, something that's assured.
Yeah, and that's the point that I got this morning, is that all of us, I think, either struggle with what we would call temptation and sin if we believe in God, or just doing things that work against our own success and happiness if you don't believe in God. And I believe those are really close to the same thing, actually, often are the same thing. Okay. And for me, as a follower of Jesus, it's sort of a rinse and repeat thing. It's a negative feedback loop. It's like, okay, my day is going along fine. And then I feel tempted to do or not do something based on pain pleasure. And so then there's a decision moment. Okay. Because I have an intention for my life. And the intention for my life is to be faithful and pleasing to God and to live a life of virtue rather than sin. Okay. But then in that temptation moment, I feel like I'm supposed to do something, but I want to do something else because my pain pleasure body and that part of my mind thinks that would feel better right now. Instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And all through my life, I've fallen for that line. I've fallen for that illusion. I've fallen for that temptation and done the wrong thing instead of the right thing. And it always goes the same way. I feel some pleasure or maybe a reduction in pain for a short period of time. And then when it's over, and I did the thing I wanted to do, even though I felt like it was the wrong thing for me to do. Now here comes the guilt, shame, and condemnation, which, another word that if you've heard me very much, you know very well, is massive stress. Okay. So I start feeling worse physically, mentally, emotionally. I feel tired. I feel angry. I feel irritated. I react differently to hope than I want to and should if I'm acting in love and kindness. Okay. And so then after the guilt, shame, and condemnation, I sort of, okay, the next morning or 2 days later or whatever, I'm sort of back to normal. And then I'm going along again, and bam, here comes another pain pleasure thing that's wanting me to do it. Okay. And it seems like, the thing 2 days ago never even happened because I'm considering it, even though it's the exact same thing. And I did it 2 days ago and it had a terrible result. Now, that's irrational. That's irrational to keep doing the same thing over and over and over. We call that the definition of insanity. Makes no sense. And I think there's a really good chance that we probably don't do that about anything other than sin. Okay. I don't do that with paying my electric bill. I don't do that with washing my body. I don't do that with brushing my teeth. I don't do that with loving and caring for my children. Okay. But when it comes to pain, pleasure, sin, or pain, pleasure, doing something I believe is wrong or not in my best interest because it brings me momentary gratification, I fall for the same trick over and over and over. Okay. That's irrational. That's the definition of insanity. Well, what is sanity? It means in touch with reality, literally. So if you're acting irrationally, the definition of insanity, by definition, it means you're acting like an insane person. Okay. Well, that puts it in a different light, doesn't it? Now I feel like a fool or an idiot. Okay. Because I'm acting like an insane person. I keep doing the same wrong thing over and over and over again and don't learn from it. First time I don't pay my electric bill, and it happened with my wife and I the first year we were married when this was a terrible move. I was the one in charge of the finances and paying the bills. And so guess what? I'm off working one day and Hope comes home and the electricity's off because I forgot to pay the bill. Now, you better believe since that day, my wife has taken care of the finances and pays the bills. And in 38 years plus, that's never happened again. Okay. But even if she hadn't taken it over, I never would have done that again. I would have learned from that very painful lesson. Not brushing my teeth. I started flossing my teeth every night, probably at about 35. What do you think caused me to start flossing my teeth? Cavities and pain. Okay. So when it comes to other things in my life, I don't do that. I learn from them. But when it comes to sin in my life, I have validated the definition of insanity in that negative feedback loop and acted irrationally over and over and over again. Okay. So faith says the Bible says God is 100% faithful. He's always faithful. He never has been, isn't, and never will be unfaithful. What does that mean? It means he's always going to do the right thing in regard to me. Now, I don't remotely always do the right thing in regard to him, but that doesn't change him. He still does the right thing toward me, whether I do the right thing or not. Love, we've talked about that a lot. And so I'm not going to go into all that again, but it's everything. That's what I believe love is the reason I exist. I believe love is the reason humanity and earth exist. Seriously. Okay. But hope is the one that's tripped me up and didn't make sense to me until today. And here's what made sense to me today. Hope is the temptation buster because hope means that what I'm hoping for is assured. And scripture says that it's an assured hope. It is not maybe will it happen. If God says it, it will happen. It's going to happen. You can put it in the bank. And it also says we have a confident expectation, which is part of the definition Harry just read from the original Greek. All right. So, in every other way, as Dan Gilbert says in Stumbling into Happiness, expectations are a happiness killer, but not with hope and God. That's the exception. Because hoping in the future, even if it's 10 minutes in the future, in what God has promised is guaranteed. So, what does that mean? It means now, when I'm going throughout my day and that temptation thing comes up, trying to get me to do the pain pleasure thing that I believe is wrong instead of the truth kindness thing that I believe is right. one of the things is, but wait a minute, I may not ever get what I really want. No, I am sure to get it because God promises, and that hope is assured, it's guaranteed. So I'm supposed to have expectation about that, which means that I can say to the current temptation, forget you. I know what I'm going to get from you, a few minutes or hours of pleasure or diminished pain, and then guilt, shame, condemnation, and stress because I violated my own belief system again, cognitive dissonance, which is always massively stressful. Okay. So forget you because I know I'm going to get what I need and probably even maybe not what I want, but better than what I want. And it is assured. So that gives me the strength, which is faith, to not do the sinful thing or the wrong thing that works against my own health and happiness and do what I know and believe is virtuous, right, good, win, win, win for all concerned, etc., and be okay, be patient to wait on God's guaranteed fulfilling of his promise to me. That even in that area, he may not give me exactly what I think I want, but he'll give me exactly what I need, which is probably even better than what I think I want. And for sure better than the cheap love substitute, which would be the sin or the wrong thing because it's pleasurable in the moment. All right, Harry, what do you want to add?
Yeah. So there were a couple of things when I was looking at the definition of faith, hope, and love. Faith redirected me to that passage from Hebrews that I know you really like. That it's the substance, or the Discovery Bible says the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of
Oh,
things not
yeah.
seen.
Great connection. Go ahead.
So what was interesting to me there is that when you look at that passage, it talks about the assurance of things hoped for, which is the same Greek word for hope that appears in Corinthians, which suggests to me that hope is reliant on faith, if
Yeah.
faith is the assurance of hope.
Yeah.
In the next verse, there's something that struck me as interesting. Faith, we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. And that jumped out to me because it made me think about which of your guys is it who says the unseen is always the parent of the seen?
That's Professor William Tiller at Stanford, head of the physics,
Yeah, I thought it was.
recently deceased.
What's interesting to me, and this may not have been his intention at all, but that's practically a direct quote from Hebrews.
Yeah, and he was a believer too, so I'm not surprised. In
Mhm.
fact, they invited me out to preach at his church one time in Arizona.
Oh, did they? So I've always been a little bit not really bothered. Felt like I didn't quite fully understand that passage in a different way. For me, it wasn't the inclusion of hope. I had maybe had that a little bit, but the big thing for me was I felt like I didn't fully understand the context because it says these three remain.
Yeah,
And so for me, I was like, okay, well that doesn't seem like a complete thought. Like remain from what? What happened to everything else?
yeah.
Uh, and this was something that they were talking about at my church a little while back, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. So I think it's one of those verses where you have to look at it in the full context of like at least the full chapter, maybe even the full book. But when you do that and you look at least the chapter, it's been talking a lot about spiritual gifts, like gifts of prophecy and healing and all that sort of stuff. And in that chapter beforehand, it's talking about how all of these other things will fade away. It talks about at first it talks about how all these different things are meaningless if they're done without love. It talks about how gifts of prophecy and tongues and knowledge will fade away. So essentially, what it seems to be saying is that for everything that you can do, there will come a point where it is obsolete, except for these three.
Well, that's great. That's a great point. I've never thought of that way, but I agree with that. That's beautiful. Yeah, and another way I see it, it's almost like God saying there's a passage in the Old Testament that says, "What does the Lord require of you?" And it's just like three or four things. It's not 20 things. And it's like boiling it down. And I see a little bit of that too, where it's almost like God saying, okay, if you want to boil it all down, you can to these three things in a foundational, basic way, and all the others kind of grow out of that foundation.
Yeah. And I think that I want to do more thinking about this because this is a fairly new thought. But I think that there's a lot of interreliance between those three. Like they kind of form a trinity that are very intimately connected.
Yeah, and
Um,
also, like, I'm sorry to interrupt. Also, like in
mhm,
psychology, faith or belief is rooted in what's happened in the past. Hope is rooted in what you think or hope might, or
mhm.
maybe that you don't, will happen in the future. And love is all three: past, present, and future. Oh, and those three,
Especially present, I would say.
you get everything: past, present, future, everything. How to handle temptation, how to handle your past, how to handle your present. You get it all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm
Oh,
not ignoring you. I'm looking at my Bible on my phone.
okay. Anything else you want to add, Harry, before we open it up for questions?
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and open it up. If I think of something else, I can interject.
Okay, if you want to speak, do the raise hand button at the bottom. If you just want to do a question, do the Q&A button below, type it in, and we'll do our best to talk about it. Or if it's just a discussion point, that's always welcome as well. If it's a criticism, constructive criticism, I love constructive criticism.
Here's another thought. One of your points that you've been making lately is how the text of the Bible seems to be the first historical instance we have of a discussion of a covenantal, self sacrificing love.
Yes, that God invented it, basically.
Yeah. So if you work with the idea that that doesn't come from us, it's given to us from God, then you can't really have love without faith either.
That's right, because you can't see God.
Yeah, they're interreliant.
Yeah, good point. Okay, Marilyn, go right ahead.
This is just a question not related to what has been said this morning, but thank you what you're saying. What is the difference? Is there a difference between unforgiveness and holding a grudge?
I think so. I think Hope has told me before. Actually, she's told me this several times about multiple people. I don't have anything against them. I don't have any unforgiveness or anything, but I don't want to spend time with that person. And I think that was what she was saying by that. There's something about them that I've got a problem with, but I'm not holding it against them. I'm not judging them. In fact, sometimes she would say, our personalities just really conflict or something like that. It wasn't I'm not forgiving them or I believe they're a terrible person or anything like that. Yeah, I think it can be, but I also think it can be unforgiveness too. It depends on how you handle it. And if Hope were to say, this person did that or their personality is this, and I just really hate them because of that, or I think they're a bad person because of that. That sounds like unforgiveness to me. But she's never said that. It's always, I don't want to spend time with that person. We're just not good for each other. I don't like being around them. It's not good for me to be around them. Puts me in a bad place. But I don't have any unforgiveness toward them or whatever. So I think there's some gray area, but also they can be different things where that's not unforgiveness. So I've dealt with that a lot with divorce. I've counseled a lot of couples who are wanting or planning to get a divorce. And tell you what, if I can get them from unforgiveness to just a grudge that's not unforgiveness, that's a really positive step where maybe they say, you're this way, I'm this way, and we just need to stay away from that topic because it's not good for either one of us. And I can't take it if we keep going to that place. So that might be sort of a grudge versus unforgiveness thing. So that's not the answer you want because it's basically yes, no, and maybe all in one. But that's about the best I can do with that one, Marilyn.
Well, can
That's
can I
okay.
take a
Yeah,
whack
yeah.
at it?
Go ahead, Harry.
Okay, so unforgiveness is a spiritual term. At least it is if you're a Christian. Holding a grudge is sort of a cultural phrase.
Hmm.
And I'd say the issue with that is that the definition that holding a grudge has can be a bit vague. So, what I would suggest is that the best way to sort this question out is to make sure that you understand biblically what forgiveness and unforgiveness mean, and then ask yourself, is that what you mean by holding a grudge, or does it mean something different that doesn't overlap? I would ask, for example, what does biblical forgiveness mean to you? And I can give you my answer if you'd like, but your answer is
Yes,
going to be
please.
more important.
She said
No, no.
yes, please.
Yes,
I'm sorry?
please.
I think she
Yes,
said
please.
yes, please.
Your answer. Yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay, my answer would simply be a return to love. And I think that you can do that and still need distance from a person. You know, there are procedures for that given in, I think it's First Corinthians, where he talks about if someone persists in a sin, you know, first you talk to them privately, then you talk to them with a brother or a couple of brothers, and then you talk to them with the church. And if they still won't listen to reason, then you treat them as a Gentile or a tax collector, meaning they're not a part of your group, but it's by their own choice. And for you, the door is still open. So that doesn't negate love, but it's taking practical measures for your own good and also sort of allowing them to go out and reap some of the results of their actions and hopefully be brought to a place where they're more willing to talk productively and humble themselves.
Okay, thank you. The reason I'm asking the question is because it's come up for me, the energy of holding a grudge. And then what I have discovered from that is we actually begrudge somebody something. And this is very much, I found the energy in my family because they are all beautiful and talented and I wasn't. And begrudging someone really is a very negative energy. And that's why I asked the question, you know, holding a grudge, is it? I almost feel from what I've sort of learned that holding a grudge and then begrudging that person, you know, whatever is good in their life is actually worse than unforgiveness. Well, that's just my feeling.
Well, I don't know if it's worse than unforgiveness. It might be a bigger issue for you in particular. But this is why I think you have to be very intentional when you're using cultural terms like holding a grudge, because what you're describing sounds more like envy than unforgiveness.
Yeah, I have done a lot of healing on on envy. Where this come up is when I was doing the intervention and I was reading the verses first, and I read the one where make sure that you have nothing in your heart, and it pinged. And when it does, I go, okay, I've got energy here. So I asked when I did the intervention to please find why I resisted forgiveness, and the word grudge came up, and from that, then the word begrudging, and that's why I sort of feel it. For me, it seemed to have a stronger energy than envy and jealousy.
There's one of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice, and classic book, of course. And there's a scene in there where the two main characters are interacting, and the male says, "Once my good opinion is lost," I don't remember the exact wording, but basically, you'll never get it back again. And the first time I was ever watching that with Hope, she reacted right at the moment. And then the female lead expressed the same thing. Oh my goodness, yes, I feel the same way. And Hope, while we were watching it, said, "That's me. That's me." And she's right. She does tend to be that way. But that doesn't mean you have unforgiveness towards someone, you know. And the way it was defined in the book and the movie was my good opinion once lost, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a grudge, or that could be a brother or sister to a grudge. He never said, "I think that's a bad person," or "I have unforgiveness toward that person." The insinuation is basically just more what Harry said. I don't want to be around them anymore.
Yeah, and one way you could look at that is if you were to use my definition of forgiveness, that it's a return to love, then you can use model that C.S. Lewis talked about in Mere Christianity, where we're supposed to love others as we love ourselves. So you ask the question, how do you love yourself? And then it's, well, do you always approve of everything that you do? No. So we don't have to do that.
Very rarely. Very rarely.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, C.S. Lewis didn't come up with that. That's straight from scripture. Love others as you love yourself.
But yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But he broke it down into like, okay, how do I love myself in practice?
Yeah, yeah. And you've got problems with yourself probably all the time. I do every single day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm working on self-rejection at the moment as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Marilyn.
Well, thank you. That's been helpful.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Comment, question, discussion? We'll give you a minute or two, see if anyone else. We don't have any right now. So, the moral: faith, hope, love. Faith based in the past, love based in the past. Hope is love based in the future. Love is, as Harry said, mainly present, but past and future too, overlaying love onto the past and the future, including people, and hope can be the temptation buster. I am going to get the pain relief and the pleasure that I need. Maybe not exactly what I want, but I will get what I need. It is guaranteed. So I can be a little more patient right now in the present, confronted with this temptation. But I believe that by faith. And both of those are from love. Okay. Well, that's all the questions we have. So we're going to sign off for the day. God bless you. We'll be here again next week, every second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month. By the way, we dropped the second intervention in Paradise last Wednesday. I'm hearing wonderful things from people. And we reopened registration for Paradise last Friday. It will close this Friday if you're interested. God bless you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.